was a man who never wrote a book, never built an army, never ruled a nation. Yet over 2,000 years later, his words still divide hearts, shape lives, and refuse to be ignored. He didn't speak like kings, he didn't argue like scholars. He told stories, simple stories, about seeds, about lost sons, about hidden treasure. But hidden inside those stories were truths so powerful, they could either set you free or expose everything you've been avoiding. And most people who heard him walked away unchanged. Not because they didn't understand, but because they did. The world he stepped into was heavy. People were tired of rules without meaning, tired of religion without life, tired of leaders who spoke about God, but didn't seem to know him. And into that tension, he began to speak, not with complexity, but with clarity, not to impress, but to reveal. But here's what made him different. He didn't just give answers, he told stories, and not everyone understood why. Some thought he was simplifying truth, but he wasn't. He was hiding it in plain sight, because a story does something direct teaching cannot. It bypasses your defenses, it speaks to your heart. It forces you to see yourself, and that's dangerous. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. One day he told a story that sounded almost too simple. A farmer went out to plant seeds. Some seeds fell on the road and were quickly taken away. Some fell on rocky ground. They grew fast, but didn't last. Others fell among thorns and got choked before they could grow. But some fell on good soil, and those seeds multiplied beyond expectation. At first it sounded like farming, but it wasn't about farming, it was about people. Because the seed was truth, and the soil was the heart. Some people hear truth and it never sinks in. Some receive it quickly but quit when life gets hard. Some get distracted by life, money, pressure, desire, and the truth never grows. But a few receive it deeply, and their lives are never the same again. This wasn't just a story, it was a warning, because it means not everyone who listens changes, not everyone who understands transforms, not everyone who starts finishes. And the difference is not the truth, it's the condition of the heart. Then came one of the most emotional stories ever told. A son walked up to his father and asked for his inheritance early. In that culture, that was like saying, "I wish you were dead." And instead of rejecting him, the father gave it to him. The son left, spent everything, lost everything, and ended up alone, feeding pigs, wishing he could eat what they ate. Then one moment changed everything. He realized, even my father's servants live better than this. So he decided to go back, not as a son, but as a servant. Because in his mind, he had gone too far. While he was still far away, his father saw him. And instead of waiting, instead of judging, instead of reminding him of his failure, he ran toward him, embraced him, restored him, celebrated him, because it didn't make sense. People expected punishment, but they saw mercy. People expected consequences, but they saw restoration, and that disturbed them because it challenged how they saw God. The real message, this wasn't just about a son, it was about failure, shame, regret, and the fear of going back. And the truth hidden inside it was this: you can walk away, you can fail, you can lose everything, but you are never too far to return. The part most people miss: there was another son, the one who stayed, the one who did everything right And when he saw the celebration, he got angry, because in his mind, that's not fair, and that revealed something deeper. You can be close and still be far. You can do everything right and still not understand grace. Why these stories still hit today? Because nothing has changed. People still hear truth but ignore it, start but don't finish, walk away and feel too far gone. Stay good, but miss the heart in these stories. Still expose all of it. But this was just the beginning, because the more he spoke, the more uncomfortable things became. He told stories about workers paid unfair wages, a man beaten and ignored by religious people, a kingdom no one could see. But everyone was invited to, and each one carried a truth people didn't want to face. We go deeper into the stories that challenged religion, exposed hypocrisy, and forced people to choose truth or comfort. Before we go deeper, take a second to like this video, subscribe if you want truth that actually challenges you, and comment this word below. Truth. Because what you're about to hear is not comfortable, but it is necessary. By now, people had started to notice something. These weren't just stories, they were mirrors. Every parable he told did one of two things. It revealed truth or exposed what people were hiding. And the more he spoke, the more uncomfortable things became. Because now, he wasn't just speaking to the broken, he was confronting the righteous. One day, a religious expert approached him, not to learn, but to test him. Who is my neighbor? It sounded like a simple question, but it wasn't, because hidden inside that question was this: who do I actually have to care about, and who can I ignore? So instead of answering directly, he told a story. A man was traveling when he was attacked, beaten, robbed, left half dead. And then help came, or at least it should have. A priest passed by, saw the man, and kept walking. Then a Levite, another religious figure, did the same. They saw the pain, but chose distance, chose convenience, chose themselves. Then someone else came, a Samaritan, someone society rejected, someone considered unclean. And when he saw the man, he didn't hesitate. He stopped, helped him, healed his wounds, paid for his care, stayed until he was safe. Why this story was offensive? Because in that moment, everything flipped. The holy people walked away. The outsider became the example. And suddenly the question changed. It was no longer, who is my neighbor? It became, what kind of person are you? You don't prove faith by what you say. You prove it by how you love, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it costs you something, especially when the person is nothing like you. Then he told another story, short, simple, but powerful. A man was walking through a field and discovered treasure buried in the ground, something so valuable. It changed everything. So he did something extreme. He sold everything he had just to buy that field. What this really means, this wasn't about money, it was about value. Because when you truly recognize something priceless, you don't negotiate, you don't hesitate, you don't hold back, you go all in, and that's what truth demands. Do you value truth enough to let go of everything else? Or do you want truth only if it costs you nothing? Because you can't have both. The story of the storm. Faith under pressure. Then there was a moment that wasn't even a parable, it was real. A storm hit, violent, unpredictable, the kind that makes even strong people panic. And the men with him, terrified, woke him up. Don't you care that we're about to die? And he stood up and spoke to the storm, and everything went still. The real question wasn't the storm. It was this: why were you afraid? Because storms don't just reveal circumstances, they reveal faith. What you believe when everything is out of control, when truth confronts comfort. By now, people were divided. Some were drawn to him, others were offended because his stories didn't just inspire, they demanded something: change. And that's where many people stopped following, not because they didn't believe, but because they didn't want to change. The hard reality: truth is powerful, but only if you accept it. Otherwise, it just becomes something you hear and ignore. And the deeper he went, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about stories. This was about a kingdom that operated completely differently. A kingdom where the last become first, the humble are lifted, and the proud are exposed. We step into the most challenging teachings yet. The ones that confront pride, hypocrisy, and the illusion of being right. Because the people who thought they understood God the most were the ones who missed him completely. By now, crowds were growing, miracles were spreading, stories were echoing everywhere. But something else was growing too: opposition. Not from sinners, but from the righteous, the ones who knew the scriptures, the ones who followed the rules, the ones who believed they were already close to God. The parable that exposed pride, the Pharisee and the tax collector. He told a story directed at people who trusted in themselves. Two men went to pray. One stood tall, confident, certain. God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. He listed his good deeds, his discipline, his obedience. Everything he believed made him right. Then there was the other man, a tax collector, corrupt, rejected. He didn't stand tall, he didn't look up. He simply whispered, God, have mercy on me. The one who walked away justified was not the religious man, it was the broken one. Because pride disconnects you from truth, but humility opens the door to it. Why this still hits today? Because nothing has changed. People still perform religion, compare themselves to others, measure worth by appearance instead of asking, am I actually right with God? The parable of the speck and the plank. Then he said something even more direct. Why do you look at the speck in someone else's eye, but ignore the plank in your own? Picture it. Someone trying to fix another person's tiny flaw while carrying something massive in their own life. That's not just hypocrisy, it's blindness. The real message: you can't help someone see clearly if you refuse to see yourself honestly. And most people, they don't avoid truth because it's unclear. They avoid it because it's personal. The story of the two builders. Then he told a story about foundations. Two people built houses, same environment, same conditions, but different foundations. One built on rock, the other on sand. And then came the storm. Not if, when, the result. The house on sand collapsed completely. The one on rock stood firm. What this really means, it's not about hearing truth. It's about building your life on it. Because information doesn't protect you, obedience does. The warning most people ignore: you can listen, agree, even feel something, and still collapse later, because emotion is not foundation. The confrontation with religious leaders at this point, he stopped using soft stories and started speaking directly, calling out hypocrisy, empty religion, performative righteousness. You honor God with your lips, but your heart is far from him.